Okay, just waiting for it to go live, and I think we are live again.
Oh boy.
Hello, audience. Welcome back. We are here with Rabid again for this episode of Behind the Lines.
Don't mind me, I'm just petting my cat.
So, yeah, the question I normally start this off with is, how did you get into Line Rider? I mean, we briefly got into that with your friend introducing you, but
Oh
like
gosh.
more generally, I mean, I guess this is probably quite a long story for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want the short version, the medium version?
whatever works for you. I mean, I have infinite time.
I'm just trying to think like what are people gonna actually be interested in? Because they'd be like, well, it all starts in like summer of 2006 when I first signed up to be in a game design camp. That's too long though. That's too many. That's too long of a story. Let's see. So the question is, how did I get into Line Rider? So I'm going to skip over the whole how did I discover Line Rider and talk about like how I went from like messing around, which is what most people are doing, to like spending hundreds of hours on a track that I had to split 12 times because there was too much scenery.
Yeah.
And that was in the span of like a year and a half that I went from one point to the other. So I think well, a few things happened. I discovered linewriter.org, and then I read the lines. And first I guess I discovered the YouTube Line Rider videos, and I found videos by a bunch of people that I don't remember anymore. But Tech Dog is the one that I remember stuck out to me. Was right around the time Tech Dog and Son was released, which is still one of my favorite tracks to go back and watch. Probably mostly because of nostalgia. But I really like the idea of creating like a large sort of two-dimensional world and then traveling through that world vicariously with Bosch. And I like the idea that you could make it with such a minimalist thing where it's literally just like a dude on a sled and lines, and that using that you could make a world and then move through that world in creative ways. And so it started out with that, which is obviously a very scenery-based appeal. And that's what I did for a very long time, was just scenery tracks. So how I mean, so that's changed a lot over the years. But that's what initially, I guess, got me into that. I mean, then also just having a community of people who were also interested in that kind of thing and interested in other aspects of Line Rider, right? So there was some of us that were interested in scenery. There were some of us that were interested in manuals. There were some people that were interested in flings, and I guess that was the main three categorizations at the time. Pretty primitive, but and then I don't really know exactly why I got into this, but I got really into reviewing tracks. And I started out being just really bad at it because I was a teenager and I didn't know like what I was doing, and I would just like be like I was like, for one thing, I was convinced that like the more time you put into a track, the better the track would be.
Yeah.
And then for another thing, I used like an out of 10 system at first. And like over time, I realized that like those are not actually that helpful. And then I would also I was the person that was always telling people um, like balance your manuals, use more of this trick, like
Yeah.
look into learning how to do this technique and stuff like that. Like add more detail to your scenery, and it was like just the very surface level critiques. But I was reviewing for a few months in 2007, I was reviewing like every track that came out. And there was a lot of tracks at the time. So yeah, that was. I just got a. I just got a message that said, "Good luck with the interview." Thanks, I guess.
Yeah.
It's from OTDE.
Nice.
What was the what? I just totally lost my train of thought because that made me laugh.
Yeah, you were saying how
Yeah, I was reviewing things, right? And then that sort of translated into like having things to say about the community, and then I became a moderator, and then I became an administrator, and then started running like contests and movie of the week stuff and other things, and then I started running everything. And then when the Lions went down, I like built a new one and just went from there, I guess. So that's what sort of kept me around for a long time was like, I guess what drove all that, because I sunk so many hours into like administrating, was just I was always excited to see what new things people were coming up with, because people were always coming up with new things. I knew that if I like motivated people, and in retrospect, some of this was misguided, but I knew that if I like motivated people, like with like, here, you'll get this thing if people like your track. I had like the Holy Shoe Awards,
yes.
which were like motivational just purely because I like almost never gave them out. And then I had then there was like movie of the week stuff, and there were tournaments, and there was contests, and there were battles, and all this stuff was designed to get people creating, which, I think some of it was like ill-advised because it got people creating in a competitive sort of way. And that sort of made it so that like there was some side effects that I didn't anticipate at the age of 18. But yeah, so that was what kept me around for a long time. And then also just creating some things every once in a while, because I had ideas that I didn't see anyone else doing, and I'd be like, hey, anyone want to try this idea? And people didn't really understand what I was thinking, and so then I would do it myself. Or more often I would plan on doing it myself and then not do it for like 5 years, and then someone else would do it. That's what happened with animation. I had an idea. I was like, oh, I'm going to animate the lyrics, and this was in 2009. And then like I never actually did it. And then finally people started doing it in like, I think 2012. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. So what would you say inspires you? Is that the question, right? So getting back to that. So then more recently, obviously I'm not administrating anymore. So more recently, what inspires me is another thing that I like maybe like kept me around in Line Rider like 2010 through 2015, which was seeing people like do music syncing and music visualization. But then like I didn't really think about Line Rider as a music visualizer until after the music syncing tools came out.
Yeah.
And I started being able to actually like choreograph it. I was actually the first person to release a track with LRA other than Noah, because I was so excited about the music feature, the music sync feature. And I made like a flat slit track in 3 days, and then people didn't understand why it was such a game changer. So then I made This Will Destroy You.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I skipped over some things in there, but
yeah.
you can basically draw a straight line from like the music sync feature tool to Colorblind to This Will Destroy You.
Yeah, well, no one can deny the success of This Will Destroy You, that's for sure. It's pretty much...
It was not expected. I mean, it's an hour-long Line Rider video that opens with 1 minute of nothing.
Yep.
I continue to be amazed by how many people watch it. I was like, that went viral?
Yeah, and that was before you even had the algorithms to really help you, because nowadays, like, I think the reason Turkish March had so many views was because it gets recommended right after Mountain King. But
well, I think actually like long videos that like a significant chunk of people watch all of are actually like really good for the algorithm. I didn't know this when I made
I've
this.
heard that, yeah.
Apparently, that's been like a shift, because the YouTube changed from view count to watch time.
Yeah.
So like the more time you spend watching. Yeah.
Like everyone on YouTube has a podcast now. Like that's kind of the way
Yeah,
it's going. So
What
yeah.
was yeah, so the music, visualizing music. So I did some music visualization work in college, just like with motion graphic stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then coming out of that, and then I like realizing like, oh, line writer actually has potential to be like a music visualization tool, but like with an element that there's not anywhere else, because there's the sort of kinetic feeling where you kind of vicariously experience the sledding.
Mm. You can feel
And
like
that's
the
something that's
impact.
kind of hard to find elsewhere. What was that?
Yeah, like one aspect is like the impact of music or pressure or whatever it is. Like you can, it's
Hmm.
kind of one of those things where if you can dream it, you can pretty much do it in Line Rider eventually.
Yeah, yeah.
So the next question I would ask is, how do you go about making a track? I mean, I know you've made quite a few different kinds of tracks, but in general, is it just based on a song or an emotion, or would you have like a whole menagerie of approaches?
It really depends on the track. I mean, more recently, I'm just really into the music visualization stuff.
Yeah,
Um, and I think the next thing I want to go into is like visualizing scenery. So like think like Bug Thief and some of OTTE's newer work. I want to really get into that because that's really exciting. But like over the years, the things that um, like drove or not, what was the question? What inspires me to make a track? No, what's the process? I don't remember. What was the
yeah.
question?
How do you? The general question was, how do you go about making a track?
How do I go about making a track?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so like with Bolted to the Wall, for example, which was a long time ago, it was just I came up with an idea for a scenery idea, right, where the white was a wall, and
yeah.
then I could draw out things hanging on the wall and cracks in the wall, and then it just went from there. I picked a song at like 50% done. um, and then there were so like everything from that to This Will Destroy You, which was like I'm gonna make a line writer track sync to this entire album, and then sitting down and doing it. Um, like yeah, starting from the beginning and going to the end. Um, it's actually funny. You might not be aware of this, but before what am I saying? Before there were music syncing tools in LRA and LRJS, people would it was very common for people to like start syncing to a specific song and then like change their mind and pick a different song, even like 3 or 4 times during making a track.
Jeez, yeah. I guess I can kind of see that, but yeah, that's kind of
There's a lot of like I didn't know this, but apparently Eden 2 by Helios,
yeah.
Robert, that one, the I didn't find out this until years after it was released, but the song was picked, I think, like after the XY section, which is like I think like 50% into the track.
Oh
Which is
man.
wild because I was like, I never understood why you use these big flings to sync with like the kids choral part in like the sort of weird interlude thing.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Oh, that's because I hadn't picked the song yet." And I was like, "What? You didn't pick the song until like after that part?" So yeah. Um so we got off topic again. Went
Yeah,
on so
we
many
seem to be doing
tangents.
that quite a bit, but
That's okay.
that's okay. Yeah. So yeah, I guess like the next question kind of relates to this anyway. So your method can pretty much vary, like you've said before. You were more into the music synchronization and visualization, but you're looking to go into like scenery based tracks and being like emotive through scenery,
Well,
or
kind of. I mean, I was into scenery based tracks for
yeah,
years, like sort of disregarding like the almost completely disregarding the track itself. Um and now I'm making all these, or I've been making these like minimalist things with like almost no scenery at all.
yeah,
Um and so I'm looking to like, yeah, I'm hoping to like come up with ideas of like visualizing the music through not like sort of marrying, like let's see, so when I listen to music, sometimes I get like visuals and I also get like movement, and I want to kind of put those together.
Okay, yeah.
So that it's like Bosch is moving through a world that's also synced to music.
Yeah.
Or or on the other hand, it could also be Bosch is choreographed to the music, and then there's also visuals that are choreographed to the music.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that with some of Andrew's work recently. That was
Yeah. So
very
that like
interesting.
the latter would be like Bug Thief would be a good example of the latter, and
Yeah.
then a good example of the former would be like Dangerous Cargo, where it's like a world that is also synced, and then Bug Thief is
Yes.
more like it's a sync with also visuals.
Yeah, that's something I'd definitely be interested in discussing with
And
OTD at some point.
it's really could be exciting is what if you have both in the same track. So like maybe you're like in the world that's synced, and
Yeah.
then the world dissolves, and then you just have visuals, and then you go back into a world or stuff like that. Like that could be really
Yeah,
cool. Anyway.
like that was kind of where I was going with that still unfinished track, the animation one, was it called? No Time for Caution, because like the whole like
Yeah.
visuals are all like in sync with the music itself, and then there's kind of like a bit of a story, but it just
Well,
but
you know how your animation was taking a long time.
yeah,
There's now copy paste features,
I
and
know, and I'm still too lazy to do it even with
there's
that.
actually there's another feature that I'm like, oh shoot, I
Rotation or
realize I
frame
might.
overlay, I think it's one of the two.
What did you
I
say?
think it might be frame overlay you're referring to, where
No, there's a feature that I have access to, but I'm not sure
uh
is public, and so I'm not sure I want to say what it is. But it would be very helpful
is it
for
rotation?
animation writing. Yes.
I knew it. Yeah, like that's what I need to finish the track pretty much, and like even then, I'm probably still, I don't know. I'll have to finish it because I'll just like die if I don't. But yeah,
Yeah, I was able to commission that feature
fair enough.
because I got that's there's an upcoming release that I am not releasing because I didn't make it for myself. I have a commission that's getting released soon that I shouldn't say any more about. But yeah, I don't know when it's coming out. I'm like, it's done. They just haven't put it up yet. So
Yeah, that could actually lead on to another question, if you don't mind. What's it like actually beginning to live your line rider dream in a sense of being able to make a living from your art?
well, it's kind of cool. It's like I guess there's pros and cons. There's more pros than cons. So I guess I'll start with those. The I mean, it's really cool to like have this thing that I've been doing for my most of my life. I guess not most of my life, but most of my life when I wasn't like a baby. Um, uh, uh, it's really cool to have it become like I never dreamed that it would move from like anything other than like a hobby that like a few people might like. I might have like the dream was I might be getting enough money to like um that I could like uh cover like expenses related to like video software and like hosting things and that's, website and stuff like that. I never imagined that it would be like actually a source of income. I also never would have imagined that it would be music videos that would be the thing.
Yeah,
It'd be like music syncing and visuals is what it seems to be. uh so I guess that's the main pro. um yeah, because it's something that I'm like I feel like I didn't realize. I mean, I guess there wasn't a demand for it for a long time, and now thanks to Mountain King, I guess there kind of is a little bit of demand.
yeah. I
And I'm
mean,
like,
that continues to climb. I think
yeah,
it's gone from like whatever, what was it, 5 million? It's almost 8 million now. People that
yeah.
have viewed that.
Well,
Which is
it got
crazy.
like 20 million on Facebook
Oh
actually
yeah, I'm sure, but
from freebooting.
Yeah, all those pirates.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it's kind of astounding how many people I've run into in my day-to-day life who I'm like, Line Rider, and they're like, oh, like that Mountain King video. And I'm like,
Oh, really?
oh my God, what is
Yeah,
happening?
that's crazy.
There's actually two people now who I've run into who've seen This Will Destroy You, who I didn't know
Huh,
before. Like they found This Will Destroy You before they met me.
huh, that's
Which
crazy.
is such a trip. What was the question? Yeah. So what's it like?
So yeah, I guess
So I
you were
guess
gonna get onto the
the
cons.
pros.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. So is that all the pros of living
Yeah,
out your dream in a sense?
the pros would be like, yeah, that it's, it's beyond my wildest dreams. The main con is that like most of it's through commissions right now. Basically all of it's through commissions right now. Where I would have preferred like to crowdfund it, because with commissions you have to like, especially because they're not in like high demand. Like everyone's not clamoring for Line Rider music video commissions. But they're like, I mean, yeah. It's, I kind of, I mean, I haven't taken everything that's come my way, for a variety of different reasons, but
I'm
like,
sure. Yeah.
um, but like I do have to, like, I don't have unlimited choices. I can't just be like, I want to make this thing, and they'll be like, okay, and I'll be like, it's synced to a totally different song that you didn't even make.
Yeah.
So I have to like, you know, or with the greeting card commission, like a um it had to be a holiday greeting card, right? I couldn't just be like, I'm just gonna, make something totally different. So
Yeah.
then it's like there's a certain restriction that comes with all of that. On one hand, it's actually kind of cool though, because um creating something for somebody else who doesn't know how Line Rider works is really eye-opening in terms of like what other people think of as interesting, or what other people want to see. um and then what kinds of things they just don't care about. um
Yeah.
so that's been really interesting to like just try to get inside their heads, which is, it's nice that I have some non-Line Rider qualifications for that, because I do a lot of freelance art theater work.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm very used to like working with, um like doing, I'm used to doing like lighting, sound, video designs for a director who has a vision about what they want the
Yeah.
show to look like. And so it's kind of a similar thing where I'm making a Line Rider track for a client who has an idea, or maybe some ideas, or maybe
Okay.
not a
Yeah.
whole lot of ideas, but they definitely are gonna be like, I like this and I don't like this, once they see things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're kind of used to balancing taking the commission, but also balancing that with kind of what you want to do in a certain to a certain degree. Yeah. So
Yeah, definitely.
to so if as you gain more popularity and you gain more commissions, do you kind of foresee like the issue with getting so many requests from people? Let's say because this happens to a lot of animation channels I've noticed on YouTube. Like the ones
Yeah.
that take too many requests. Like occasionally they'll put out like something that they really love and they've really worked on that normally does the best. But like all the rest of their stuff is like like what's the one like Spider-Man and Elsa go on a date, or like something like that. So
Yeah.
so do you think like you're on
I
this?
think that arises more just from like, um that arises when people are like sort of financially dependent on that kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
If
and
that
and
like
you aren't, I guess.
they're dependent. Well, yeah, I'm not really dependent on Line Rider videos, and I'm not planning on like changing things in my life so that I am dependent, unless I get to like a certain level where am doing things that I love. So I think that's just sort of a case of people being like, I want to be like make my living off YouTube, and they're really excited about that, and then in order to do that, they have to like make a bunch of crap. um
Yeah, well,
so I don't know, it's definitely something that is worth thinking about.
yeah,
But yeah, uh I like to be in a position where I'm not taking things that I don't want to make just because I need the money.
yeah, for sure, yeah,
Especially when it comes to Line Rider, because that's the tricky thing about taking a hobby and turning it into a job is like you don't want to make yourself hate it. So you don't want to take things that you're not going to like doing just because it's a thing that you know how to do and can get paid if it sucks the joy out of it, so
Yeah.
it's tricky. But it's also nice that I don't have a day job, so I don't have to like quit anything to work on Line Rider. I'm just switching from like freelancing some things to like freelancing a little more other things. So it can be a nice fluid transition. Whereas other people have to make a choice. Like, do I quit my day job to do YouTube, or do I'm
Yeah.
not anywhere near that point where if I had a day job that I would be like, I'm quitting to become full-time Line Rider artist. So,
Yeah. Bet
yeah.
everything on YouTube. So
Yeah, my honestly though, my preference, this is what we got on a tangent again, but this is what I was trying to get to was uh I would prefer to have it mostly funded through my Patreon, which is way more modest than the commissions I'm getting. Because then I could like make whatever I wanted, and like then I could get like sort of feedback from people who
hmm.
are interested in what I was making. Whereas with commissions, it's like I'm making something for one person, and then like maybe other people like it, but like it's there's a lot less freedom to like experiment with new things. Though on the other hand, it does challenge me to experiment with new things because people want things that I'm like, oh yeah, I've never thought about making that before, or like or yeah, just other things where I'm like, in this context, I'm making something that I never would have made by myself, and so I'm learning things through that.
Yeah.
I'm avoiding specifics because like there's only one that's out, and there's like
Yeah.
two more. There's one that's in progress, and there's one that's done but not out, so I can't talk about.
Yeah. Well,
You'll have to interview me again.
Yeah. Well, you've heard
Anyway.
Rabid, guys. If you want to go support him, the Patreon is in the description below.
Oh
Go
yeah,
make
that'd be great.
Rabid's day. So
Just send me $1.
yeah.
$1 per major release that I'm not getting commissioned, which is like at this rate, it's like every 6 months.
Yeah. So we've been talking about not hating what you make. So what would you say drives you to make the tracks that you make? Like just passion,
I feel like we've
obsession?
already talked about this a lot. Or you mean just like on the day-to-day level?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
so
maybe I
like
should
I've
change
answered
this.
like the big picture, like I like to
Yeah.
visualize music, and now it's like zoom into like the
Maybe
day-to-day,
I
like
should change the
what.
question slightly.
Yeah, go ahead.
To slightly different question. How much do you put into a track? Like not just time wise, but maybe like emotionally, like depending on what the track might be, the song, like how it makes you feel. Like how much do you give of yourself to your work? I guess.
I mean, as much as I can, really. I mean, I feel like that's what makes art. Uh, well, I mean, I guess I want to be. Yeah, I want to see if I can get this right because I went to I went to college and studied art, and other things, but and there definitely is a tendency of people in like studio art majors, especially, to be like making art that's like very very personal that other people are like can't relate to or don't understand even. Um, and it's like the art sort of becomes more of like a process of self exploration rather than like creating something for people to affect people or for people to appreciate in other ways. So I definitely feel like there it is possible to like get too self absorbed in the art that you're making. Um, but I also feel like it's really important if you are making art that you want to resonate with others, for you to like make something that's going to resonate with you, and just the process of like creating something that's like going to be whatever you want it to be, like moving or affecting in some way. I mean, it's going to affect you while you make it. um so it's a interesting question because it's like there's not really a way to quantify like how much of yourself do you put into your tracks. um uh and I guess, I'm not like it's definitely abstract a lot of the time, but so I guess with Ruby Falls and This Will Destroy You specifically, it would be the music like means an incredible amount to me, and the tracks are kind of like a way of sharing that music with other people.
Yeah, so you're more
Um,
putting the music into the track, and maybe your relationship
yeah,
with the music into the track, and trying to share that.
yeah, but at the same time, like it's definitely um, uh, the way that I'm gonna visualize the music is gonna be based on my personal feelings in relation to the music. So I mean, I think we all put ourselves into our tracks.
Oh yeah,
The more time you spend, and the more, um, and not just the more time you spend. Sometimes it's just the topic of the track can be very personal. And I think the more we're able to like share those kinds of vulnerabilities in art, I think the more other people are able to connect with those. I'm thinking of Broken right now,
yeah, that's
which
one I
was
would have brought up. Yeah,
yeah, which was like it only like it didn't take all that long. So I didn't put a lot of it in terms of that, but then it was um I mean, it started out where I was just like, oh, I could make like a minimalist track to this song, and then and like tell a little bit of a story, and then I realized, oh, this is actually a very personal story. But then so then like just I guess for me it was just sort of embracing that and being like deciding that it was going to be a good thing for me to be sort of um
open in that sense.
yeah, to like just take that idea and run with it and be like, yeah, this is about my experience with depression.
Yeah,
And then and
and
not
yeah,
be shy about not be shy about stating that, but also not be shy about like making the track really about that, and sort of sacrificing like being like it's more important the track is about this than it is that the track is going to be impressive or engaging to for the contest, you know?
yeah. I mean, personally, I think one of the things in this case, this is an example of, someone putting a lot of themselves into a track, but it's still like it's not closed off. Like, I mean, I remember when I watched it, like anyone can relate to that. Like, it is very
Mhm.
effective. So, in this case, I think it's a slightly different example. But yeah, so I think we should.
I would love to do more of that. I just don't have any ideas.
Yeah, yeah, there's
I feel
definitely
like
a
they'll
lot.
come. Like the more experimenting I do and the more trying out of new things I do, I'll get more ideas for that kind of a thing. It was sort of just uh, I stumbled on it and was like, oh, I could make it about this, and then it sort of became something that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, I mean, minimalism can definitely breed some very interesting tracks. Like I guess this year my favorite would have been Olsen, which was just
Yeah,
very very interesting track. So
minimalist animation.
yeah, like who
Yeah,
knew?
yeah.
those those green lines will get you. So I guess the next question would be, oh, what was
That's like
that?
line writer tagline. That no, that's Tech Dog's tagline right there. Those green lines will get you.
Oh, yeah, those green lines will get you every time. Yeah, they'll fool you.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about the state of track making today? Like, are you happy, unhappy? What do you think about the way it's gone?
Well, I'm seeing like a lot of good things, and I'm seeing a lot of disappointing things at the same time. So I'll definitely talk about the good things first, which is I'm really so I've already touched on some of this, but like a long time ago, people were looking at sort of things you could do in line writer in these very clear cut boxes. Like you could do these tricks, you can do these tricks, you can do scenery, you can do manuals, you can do flings, you can do, and then sometimes people will be like, this is like a new style, and either it would catch on and people would do things exactly like that, or it wouldn't catch on, and people would not do things like that again.
Yeah.
And I like that people are now sort of embracing this idea that like you don't have to do something in a style, that you can just do something that's different, and things that are different don't have to catch on for them to be good. Right? So I don't have to look at Broken as a failure because nobody else made a minimalist track about depression, right?
Yeah. In before someone does.
I mean, maybe people will, but like it doesn't necessarily mean it's not it wasn't worthwhile
Yeah,
just because people
exactly.
don't copy it, right?
Yeah.
So it was this weird thing where people were like, um, where people would be like make tracks that were quote unquote for fun, and those would be like the weird experimental things, and then they would make other tracks that were quote unquote serious tracks, which would be in the style of a very specific kind of track that a lot of other people were making, but was like maybe very time consuming or difficult to learn or something like that. And so I'm really happy to see people moving away from that. And then I feel like on the flip side, I still see these like trends of people being like, oh, there's this hot new thing that everyone's doing. And so then it's like in every track, right?
Yeah, I guess we
And
had that this year with probably like the singularities and the 10 point
yeah,
cannons of a new older age at the moment.
yeah. So that's one example. I think it pops up in a lot of other places too. But yeah, I think so. That's like the main thing I see. Um, yeah. So I guess I guess the other aspect where I feel like people are starting to see of it more as less as a competitive thing, which I feel like I'm maybe partly at fault for creating that atmosphere of competition, and like we touched on this earlier, um, people trying to become like better at line rider and like to like I don't know, like I don't know, like a lot of
Climb the
people
climb
like
the
yeah,
heap, so to
climb the
speak.
ladder,
Yeah.
climb the hierarchy ladder, um, all those kinds of things, um, to the point where like I don't want to get into too many details, but there was like when I started like trying to talk about like we should like not be viewing this as like a hierarchy, um, there was like uh there was like some pushback because people thought I was like trying to make a new hierarchy where I was at the top. And it was like,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
no, no, that's not what I'm hoping to like level, not even like level the playing
You
field,
just
but
kind
just
of want
like
a paradigm
get
shift.
rid of the get rid of the playing field entirely, you know?
Yeah.
Like we're not playing on a competitive field, we're just making stuff. And you know
Yeah.
and it's like, but then that doesn't have to be divorced from like improving at various techniques, like you know, techniques are like tools in your toolbox,
Yeah.
and you can use them to make art, but the techniques are not the end goal, right?
Yep.
so I know, I don't know, it's like I'm happy to see that, but then at the same time I still feel like the community is made up mostly of people who came to Line Rider from a like a gaming perspective, and I'm like still being like, where are like the artsy people, right?
Yeah.
Who are interested in Line Rider, but there's no community for them, right? Not like there's any community that are like, we hate artists, but like people probably join and be like, oh, there's not like, this is mostly like um gamers who are interested in art as opposed to like artists interested in Line Rider. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just because of the nature of gaming and how it is at the moment, and how gaming is just so competitive, especially in this age with like multiplayer
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I think there will always be like probably a 99% of the people that come into Line Rider will be from that background, because I mean, how do you stumble across Line Rider? You're a kid normally that likes games, and you find it on like whatever it was on like Miniclip back in the day,
Yeah. Yeah,
or
which is weird because like I mean it wasn't created as a game. I mean it was posted on DeviantArt,
yeah,
right? And it was made by someone for an illustration class. Like it wasn't it wasn't originally conceived as a game. It just got picked up by people messing around with Flash games.
Yeah.
Got put on all these different Flash game sites. And so
Yeah, I think that's how I found
people
it.
found it. Yeah, playing games in class, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But I think the tracks I made back then were pretty much like Jagged Peak style. I just make like like mountain adventures or whatever. Like it's not really like, so it's not really a game. It's more like, well, I guess in a way, like you challenge yourself. So I don't know if you can really call that a game.
Which is, I mean, I think that's great. I think it's great for people who are like messing around with like, I don't know, what's the moon? What was like the moon, the one where you're on the spaceship and you like shoot things, or like
asteroids, isn't it?
Oh yeah, asteroids is sure, but like any things like that where it's like very clear there's like levels and there's like high scores and there's like a win state and a lose state.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's not a win state, but there's like progression. And people are like messing around with that, and then they find Line Rider, and I feel like for me it was like sort of a trap door into being like, oh, I'm an artist. Right? Where like I wasn't thinking of myself like that while I was playing Line Rider for the longest time. And so I think that's great. But then on the other hand, it's like, it would also be nice if people who are artists be like, getting into Line Rider being like, I didn't realize how much potential this like weird little sandbox game had, for making art. So I don't know. I feel like I'd like to see both sides of that. And I'm mostly seeing one, but that's been true for all of Line Rider's existence. And I've only recently sort of gotten a handle on like, oh, this is why the Line Rider community has been the way it has been.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I actually found Line Rider was from basically burning out of the extremely competitive multiplayer game. So I found Line Rider and I was like, huh, like I remember I used to have a lot of fun on here, and hey oh, there I go. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call what I make art. I mean, personally, when I make tracks, I feel more of like almost like a choreographer, if that makes sense, or like a conductor.
Choreography is art, but
if that
dance
covers
is one of the
art,
artsiest mediums out there. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the whole stereotypes about interpretive dance and stuff. So, that's what we're doing in Line Rider, right?
Pretty much. You hear that, people? If you're a good dancer, you're going to be good at Line Rider. You heard it here
or
first.
If you're a bad dancer or uncomfortable with dancing, but have liked the idea of choreographing, like me.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, oh, I love the idea of like choreographing a dance, or like choreographing movement in general, but like aren't good at dancing or just really socially awkward and don't like dancing.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, you just kind of have to learn to just like not give a single fuck basically, and then it's fine.
Well, I mean, I think there's like, I don't know, I want to push back on that just a little bit. Just because I think there's definitely a certain amount of like, you can't just convince yourself that you don't care.
You can if you're drunk in the club, but that's most of my experience of dancing.
No one will believe you, and you're lying to yourself.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can maybe, and see, that's the thing is you can convince yourself, but you'll still be like wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is possible to not care about Line Rider, but if you are making things in Line Rider and spending lots of time on them and putting them on YouTube, you care.
Oh yeah. Getting away from the dance and back to the Line Rider. Don't make your Line Rider tracks drunk whilst in the club. Like that's just not gonna really go down too well.
I've seen people try to make Line Rider tracks while drunk, and they just it's like it doesn't work. They're just they think everything they make is terrible. And making Line Rider tracks high is like totally the opposite. Like,
I've seen that
actually. Absolute crap, and let's think it's the greatest thing of all time.
I've seen some interesting tracks worked on while high actually. But
I don't know. I've never made tracks while under the influence of anything. I don't really.
Neither have I.
Partake in drugs much, so
I don't need it
anyway,
to get the
where were we?
The creative juices flowing. Yeah, so actually, I guess we'd probably lead on. Well, yeah, we're talking about the state of track making today. So I guess.
Oh yeah, I was talking about, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, I was talking about how I sometimes I sometimes see, I mean, I think this used to be worse and it's getting better, but sometimes I see people like sort of like very strongly insisting that they don't care what people think and like trying to project like that they don't care about what people think, but it's sort of like they're and sometimes they might even be convinced themselves, but it's also very clear to people on the outside that they do care. And it's not even that it matters that like people can tell, like maybe people can't tell, but even if people can't tell, it's still, I don't know, I feel like it's just a crappy way to make art, um where it's so much more, it's so much more, um it's so much more impactful to people when people when um when someone is sharing something genuine, you know, um like Broken, for example. Can you imagine if I like put like if I like try to convince everyone after I released it that
Oh
I
yeah,
just made it in a couple days and it didn't matter to me and it didn't actually mean anything and
yeah,
I don't care what anyone thinks of it. Like it just wouldn't,
yeah.
you know. It's
I mean,
so
certainly, from my perspective, when I made tracks, I mean, the reason I released them is because I wanted to share them with people, you know, just to
yeah,
see what they thought. And I mean, also initially when you first get into it, you're just like, oh, you kind of like want validation in a way. So you're just like, man, I
yeah.
just
It
gotta
was.
keep making tracks, and you know, but
I like how like sometimes you like I'm not sure what you're bumping, but it makes the webcam shake,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
just did that when you're like gotta keep making tracks and it just
there you go.
emphasis.
Yeah, yeah,
I just got distracted by that. Yeah, I feel like we all need validation. We still need validation, and I feel like what I have found works is instead of trying to like I don't know, it's gonna be you're gonna have a really hard time if you take the if you take to heart the commenters that are like get a life, right?
oh
If
yeah,
you like
God,
take those and internalize them, you're going to have a bad time.
yeah, I've had to
But
deal
the
with those a
solution
lot.
isn't to just be like I don't care what anyone thinks, right? The solution is you find friends and people who you know are not going to shit on you. You know, you develop like mutual trusting, compassionate relationships with people, and then you share things with them, and you know, and you have to trust that they're not just going to be like it's great to whatever you do, right? You have to trust that you're going to be able to be like I like this part and this part I didn't understand and stuff like that, but you trust that they're going to be, you know, nice to you
Yeah, you
and that they're
definitely.
going to actually care about what you make.
Yeah,
That they're going to give you like feedback that is going to be valuable to you, and just you know knowing that people out there are going to care about what you make is I think is really important. And then you can like be like I care about what these people have to say and I don't care about what these people have to say, right? I think that is what's worked for me. um, I think you might have noticed that I haven't released anything in a while. And that was because I took a big long break from Line Rider in April because I just had some sort of like unhealthy relationships with myself and how I was trying to get myself to work on Line Rider tracks, where it was like I was like to the point where I was like, do I even like doing this anymore? Right. Um, and I think some of it was like hearing some things that people were saying about me, um, but another big part of it was just that I was like, I have to make line runner tracks because, and then there was all these like unhealthy reasons, um, and I would like sit down and like stare at my screen and be like, I'm gonna work on this project, and then I would just like stare and then sink into despair and not touch the project and then collapse.
yeah,
Sometimes that's literally what would happen. And so I had to like do some serious reflection about like what do I like about this and what is going to be a healthy and like how can I come up with a healthy way for me to work on these things. And what's worked for me is to just find an environment, and it can be very small. It could be like one friend and you're like, hey, let's like work on stuff together, right? And so that's and it can be more. It can be like, you know, a whole bunch of people. But it needs to be people who you're going to be able to like be like friends with, and like that you can trust each other not to be mean to each other, and that you can, yeah, and then like someone else who's like, it doesn't even have to be line writer, but like someone else who's going to work on something and then who's going to be interested in what you're working on, and then they're working on something, you can be interested in what they're working on.
Sure, yeah.
And you can have any number of people in that kind of a space, down to like, it has to be more than one, but but like that kind of community and sharing is what, I think it's what drove me to make tracks back in the day too. I didn't have a webcam, or there wasn't like voice chat apps, or at least they might have been, but we didn't use them. But I was
Yeah.
just messaging people while I was making Both the Wall, while I was making Archaeology. And then I was like doing like collaborations or like directing things. And so I was constantly talking to people about like, here's the ideas about the track. And like, I don't know. Yeah. So like, but I just remember like while making Archaeology, I was like spending long hours because I was crunching to try to get it done in time for the tournament. And I was just talking with like Commander Coke and Ghosty and some other people, some old people, not old people, but old school line writer people.
Yeah.
Just constantly being like, I just finished this part, and then they'd be like, yay, good job, and then I like send a picture or whatever,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
You get a pat
And
on
I
the
think
back.
that's what is really helping me get back into it. So yeah.
So, would you say you kind of felt? Because I guess, I mean, we have to acknowledge that because you've been, an instrumental part in Line Rider for, over a decade, and now you have this, monumentally popular track. Do you feel like a kind of sense of responsibility, to make tracks? Is that part of it? I can kind of.
um I guess not really. I've never thought about that. I've never thought about it as like I have like a duty to make tracks now that I have a successful track. um
Or do you
I
feel
did think
like,
about it as like I need to capitalize on this to
yeah,
like make more tracks so that people will like I need to put out regular content, right? And I think that was part of the unhealthy thing,
hmm,
was trying to force myself to do that when I wasn't,
yeah,
when I was like literally just sitting alone by myself, like playing small portions of a song over and over and over.
yeah, because
And it's like, it's
because
not
you,
actually that fun to do by yourself. And then I tried Twitch streaming, but like you can't really,
it's
it's
not,
hard to
yeah,
like
it's
control who's
annoying,
there.
yeah,
And so like you might have just some random person, or you might have someone who's a friend and then you have a great time. Or then you might have someone who like I know who you are, I just don't feel like talking to you specifically right now, but then you kind of have to, and you either have to talk to them or like ignore them or like block them. And those latter two options just seem like unnecessarily harsh.
yeah. Like
There's
Discord
no like
calls
polite way
tend
to
to
be like,
work
I
better.
just want to stream to my friends, right?
Hmm.
So so yeah, so I yeah, so anyway.
Yeah, so I guess
What was where were we talking
the lead
about?
on, yeah,
Oh,
the lead on from that
your
would be,
light is getting kind of dim, just so you know. You're
yeah,
becoming like a
the sun
vampire.
is the sun is steadily going down as we talk. Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Let me sort that out.
I just thought I'd mention it. What were we talking about? There we go. That's what what was the, there was like a question that you asked.
Well, actually, I have a kind of a lead on from that. Do you feel like, maybe the first question I asked wasn't the best, phrasing? So would you say like not a responsibility, but do you feel like a weight of expectation after like This Will Destroy You?
Oh, I mean, yeah, a little bit. Releasing Ruby Falls, I was like, I don't know what people are gonna think of this, because it's like not anything like. I mean, it's a little bit like This Will Destroy You, but it's not.
That's pretty
Um,
different, but
it's pretty different. Actually, you know what? It wasn't actually Ruby Falls. It was The Wilderness, which was the one I worked on after This Will Destroy You. And I'm like, this one's like totally different. Like it could not be less similar. Um, and so, and it was kind of weird because like there were some people that like pledged to my Patreon, and then like The Wilderness, and they were like, what is this? This is like nothing like that thing that you were making. So
yeah,
um so it was kind of weird. I feel like it's been long enough now that I don't feel that anymore. I don't feel like, uh-oh, what are people going to think of this totally different thing. um So yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Okay,
What
so
was the original question that you thought was badly worded? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was when I asked you, do you feel like you have a responsibility to like always be producing content?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess not really. It's. I guess that's a benefit of having these projects take forever, is that there's no way for you to do them even like monthly,
Yeah,
unless it was like a full-time job. There would be no way for me to do it monthly. Um, so, so yeah, it was like it's never really been a thing that I've been like, oh, I should do that, because it's always been, oh, that'd be impossible.
yeah,
At least to do the thing. I mean, I guess I could like pump out. I guess Dual Chaos is kind of doing that, where he's kind of like pumping out easier to make tracks in relatively short amounts of time, um, and mixed with other content, which is also kind of helps the keep the viewership up. I guess that doesn't really appeal to me, because I just want to make things that are like, it's like I want to make the things that I dream about, you know. And it's never been like, well, I mean, after doing it for 10 years as a hobby that earned me no money at all, now it's like I would rather keep doing that and get a little bit of money than like totally change what I'm doing and start like making a living off of it, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you on that. So I guess we kind of got into this before, but I'll just ask it again anyway in case you have anything else to add. How does it feel having produced This Will Destroy You, and because I guess in a way like that spawned like the second birth of line rider popularity. I mean that's probably what's drawn the most people in, that and Mountain King, which was spawned from it. So
Yeah.
how does that feel to be, I guess, the
Ooh.
person that's brought line rider back in a way?
Oh, well, it's like it's a I have a lot of very strong, very sometimes conflicting emotions about it. uh because yeah, it's been really weird to be like, I don't know. I hope no one gets mad if I say that I don't really feel super welcome in the line rider community these days. Um, uh, but yeah, that's how I feel, and so it's very weird to be like I don't know, for a long time I'm like trying to like bring activity into the community and get people working on stuff and like keep people going, and because I wanted to see what people were making, and then now I'm kind of like not really part of the community. I'm not really running the community. I'm not really in a leadership position in most of the ways, in terms of like the part of line router community that like interacts with each other, right? So like not counting the people who watch videos but don't join the subreddit or the forum or
Yeah,
the Discord server. Um, so it's a very weird feeling to be like, I'm like kind of, I mean, not solely responsible, but like uh a large chunk of responsible. Like it's a weird feeling to be like, have in some way partially caused the level of activity in the community that you're not really in,
yeah,
but we're in for like a very very long time. So I'm like, it's like the dream is accomplished, but I'm like
but
not in it
you're not
anymore.
really there to, yeah, you're not able to
Yeah,
guide all the new people,
yeah,
or
yeah.
to not guide them as the case may be.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's the thing is like I'm seeing a lot of, I'm seeing a lot of people making things that I'm not really that interested in. Um and I think part of it's just how I've changed, part of it's how the community's changed, part of it's how um part of it's like the the kinds of people who have always been attracted to the community. Um but it is kind of like, it is kind of uh a weird thing, and I think this was part of the reason for the hiatus too, of feeling like if I'm making these line rider tracks, am I just like, funneling people into a community that I'm not actually part of myself, like if I make these line rider tracks and I inspire people to create their own line rider art, are they just gonna like join this community that I don't feel welcome in and have fun over there? Like I'm like, why am I doing this? Right. Um so I think that's part of why I took a big break. Um was trying to sort all that out, being like, why do I actually want to make these tracks? Because for a long time I was making tracks because I wanted people to come to the community I was running, right? So in a way it felt like sort of like my community. I mean, I don't want to say that because it wasn't like I owned the community, but it was like I ran most of the things in the, like, I wanted people to join it. um and now I was like, that's not really, that can't be the reason why I keep doing it, right? Because that doesn't, it's not a thing.
Yeah,
um
sure.
so yeah, sorting all that out was thing. So what was the question? Right, what was it like seeing like what's
What's it
the
like?
popularity?
Yeah, being
Yeah,
the
so but then on the
progenitor.
other hand, like I am seeing the influence of some of the things that I'm creating and some of the things that other people are, and other people who are inspired by me are creating, and then like I'm seeing the community change in some ways that are exciting and in other ways that are disappointing. And I'm following it all. I'm lurking constantly. I haven't checked since the incident, but
Well,
because I've been busy with the things. But yeah, I'm definitely planning on continuing to lurk in the background and see what's going on.
well, you're certainly welcome back. So, to move on, to follow on from that, where do you
Yeah,
see Line Rider going?
where do I see Line Rider going? Um, I don't really know. I mean, it depends on what people make.
Or
They're
maybe I
like,
should narrow it
people
down.
who release tracks are like, I just feel like, I feel like people underestimate how much influence the things that they make have over the things that other people make.
Yeah,
um, do you want to rephrase the question though?
yeah. Or maybe if you don't have too much to say on that, we can just stick to where do you hope to see it go?
Right. um, where do I hope to see it go? Um, I think I've already talked a bit about this. Like,
A little, yeah.
I'd like to see more people from an artistic background. Not necessarily that I want all the gamers to leave, because I think they bring lots of different perspectives as well that are valuable. I just also like to see other perspectives, um, and I'd also like to see, like, I don't know, how do I say this without how do I state this without
Just say whatever you need to say.
right. Let's see. So I would also like to see people who, um the different kinds of people. Just there's just a lot of people who I know, and probably some that I am not aware of, who also don't feel super welcome in the community as it stands right now, and I would like to see what those people would make. um that's the dream, I guess. I don't know how to get there, but um
Yeah. Well, hopefully,
avoiding, like, I'm trying to be like, how do I do this without just sounding like, I don't know, without it sounding like political.
Line Rider
Yeah,
politics.
it's not like line rider, it's not like things people are making line rider political. It's more like just the people who feel comfortable in the space is a political topic, right? um so that's, yeah. And like I mean, I obviously don't want to talk about specific people because I don't want to, yeah, but there's like people I know about who, like, were and or are interested in Line Rider, but like not really interested in the community. And because there's no other space for people to like um make make things in Line Rider with other people, then it's like it doesn't. They just sort of be like, well, I'll do something else, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a contentious issue. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess you tried to address that with the Line Rider Artist server that lasted for a little
Yeah.
while.
Well, it's I'm not done attempting it.
Good
uh
to hear.
but but yeah, that was the goal of that space. And the problem was just that we had this idea that if we just opened the space up to everyone and let everyone in and then like tried to just politely explain to people when they like the space wasn't for them, that they would just politely be like, oh, okay, and leave. Like obviously that doesn't work.
No.
um so so yeah, that's that. But yeah, so it's gonna, I mean, it's probably gonna be like more underground. But
Yeah,
yeah.
like the first one was. But yeah, because I mean,
Yeah, like it was before we opened it up. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I tried to once it ended, run my own server, but I mean, it
Mm.
just died eventually. So there's just not really
Yeah,
much
well, I
point.
mean, you also, I mean, you had a pretty similar model to the current thing, except all people had to just type like "I agree" and then you were in.
Yeah,
Um,
except I could
so it
like
wasn't that much
interview.
of a
Yeah,
different atmosphere. What?
yeah, except I could like ascertain who was joining and who wasn't, basically. But
Yeah, that's also true. So you had control. But it was, I don't know, was there anyone who like, I guess that, no, whatever. But I feel like we're getting into a
yeah,
topic that.
it's definitely a useful system for other Line Rider servers, like the Line Rider Collab server. It's extremely useful for that one.
Yeah.
We've managed to foil innumerable attempts by the same group of people to just join, because what they do is they join and then they just immediately start spamming like racism and homophobia and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad to have run that server just for the experience of making a server that way. So
Yeah. Well, I'm very familiar with that part of it.
yeah,
I was doing that for 8 years. Although mostly it was early on. In the latter days, and we ride the lines, there weren't really a lot of people that would join just to cause trouble.
yeah,
But in the I ride the lines days in like 2008, 2009, that happened all the time. People would join and just like spam porn. You'd be like, no, no. And then like there was sometimes people would join and like just like they were just like really good at trolling, right? Like they would join and post things that were like the most incendiary things I could think of that were like still relevant to Line Rider. So
yeah.
anyway, but like, you get a feel for like, oh, this person's not actually trying to like.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. Like that's why that system works. Was within about 2 or 3 questions. Like the biggest one, she's like, "So how did you find this server?" Like that normally is just like, it's like because if they're not in the main Discord, then they can't have got the link anywhere. So it's pretty obvious. So
Yeah.
yeah, without going
I
off.
think I think yeah, we're getting off topic, but like the space that I would imagine creating, and we decided not to try to like convert that into the space because it would have been a kind of a mess trying to convert it, but like it would be a system where it's not just like how did you find this, as long as I know you're not just here to cause trouble, you're in, but it would be like, what is your art background, right? Questions like that,
Yeah,
just to see like, to be like, if if you came to this place because you are nostalgic for Flash games, you could probably have a more fun in the community that
yeah.
already exists,
Like you could have questions like like what do you want to do with Line Rider? Like what's your like Line Rider
Yeah.
philosophy? If you can even ask new people such a question. If such a
I feel
question
like that would
isn't
be an
pretentious.
overwhelming. That's tricky because like if you ask people like, what is your Line Rider philosophy, and they're
So pretentious as
I
well.
don't know, I just thought it was interesting. Right?
Yeah, I
like I
just
don't think that would be just too intimidating of a question. So that's tricky. It's like, how do you find people who are like vaguely interested and you like want to see what they would make, but like don't have like
yeah,
a really like like don't have like all the information experience that we have after playing for
Yeah.
a year in your case.
Well, you could just ask which tracks do you like the most. That's a pretty easy way of answering that question.
Yeah, but then that question, see, a troll would be good at answering that question.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
That's a problem. But you could say, like, talk about why you liked one of your favorite Line Rider tracks. That could be a question that a troll would be easy to spot on, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it really depends, yeah. So, I guess I only have one more question, which is the one I always ask everyone. If you had one message, I mean, I guess we've kind of talked about this, but if you had one message for just newcomers that are joining, like, what would you tell them?
I'd say that, like, if you watch this whole interview and you like what I'm saying about like art and like faces that are like different, for lack of more precise but more incendiary terms, just like get in touch. If you can find my channel, you can find like all the social media that you could dream of to contact me on, and yeah, message me.
There you
I
go.
think that's all I have to say.
Okay, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I want to say thanks for doing this interview. I've been pleasantly surprised how nice it's been. So, yeah, considering recent events. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
And thanks for letting me be sort of honest about some things that I think and feel about the Line Rider community.
Well, that's what this show is all about. Just, be real. There's no need to, put on a persona or hide what you truly feel. And that, that goes for any newcomers. I guess that'd be something I would add. Like, don't feel like you need to, get sucked into whatever culture you join just because that's what everyone else is doing. Like, just do what makes you happy. And, that's the most important thing with anything you do at the end of the day.
It can be tricky though, because sometimes you need that community to be happy, right?
Yeah, like you can get pretty lonely out on the fringe.
Take it from me. It can be very lonely.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll conclude there. If you enjoyed the interview or you have questions, leave a comment, like, dislike, hate, whatever, leave it below. And this is us signing off, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks
for watching.
Bye-bye.